Anne.
Thank you so much, Madeline. I really appreciate your kind words, and I'm really delighted to be here with everybody. Um, Big Bear has a very special place in my heart, and it's wonderful to be able to join you through the Zoom sphere, all the way from Wisconsin here in the Midwest. And I appreciate Madeline shared a little bit about my background, and I always think it's helpful to share a little bit about how I came to the practice because I really came to the Dharma through the door of secular mindfulness. Um, I didn't really know anything about the Dharma, but I had heard a lot about mindfulness in my work as a psychologist and research and teaching. And when my mother passed away, I was really suffering a lot. And the typical ways that I had used to work with difficult emotions, which mostly was just pretending that I was fine, uh, didn't work. And I was really struggling and had never really been, being in a place like that where you just really feel so unmoored and desperate. And my grief counselor suggested that I try mindfulness. And I was like, I've heard of that. I know some studies on mindfulness. It's really cool how it changes your brain. I had heard about mindfulness through research and my work as a psychologist, but had never tried it. But I loved the data. I love that it was like a specific set of tools, kind of like a curriculum, because I understood curriculums, like that made sense to me. And so I tried it without really knowing anything about it and taught myself how to meditate with apps and uh, YouTubes and found a lot of relief. Um, it was really helpful. But what I also brought to the practice was my type A perfectionistic striving personality. And, I was going to do mindfulness right. I was going to excel at it. Like I'd always tried to excel at everything else. And, that way of learning about things and doing new things had always worked really well for me. Um, and I'd been able to excel at things and master things and achieve things that I wanted to. So I figured it should work with mindfulness too, right? Meditating, of course. And we're really conditioned in our culture to um, be perfect and excel and master, to take control and really exert willpower to achieve and make things happen. And there's a sort of underlying story that if we do this, we're going to be okay. That we'll be fine. If you do X, Y, and Z, if you master it and get on it and really put all your effort toward it, you're going to be okay. And I was really searching for something that was going to make me be okay because I did not feel okay. And you know, my I think when we start our practice, the sort of that striving and really efforting helps because it's hard to learn something new. It's hard to make a new habit. It's hard to really stick with something long enough to see the benefits. And so it helps to a point. But the harshness and rigidity that I was meeting my mindfulness meditation practice with began to work against me. And it was really counter to my intentions to try to be with my experience with kind awareness. The striving was just too harsh. But I really didn't know how else to do it. I didn't really have um, any any skill. And that's really when I started seeking out the Dharma, because it was like, okay, mindfulness meditation is really helpful. I think there's something else. I think there's something more to help me. And so that's when I really started seeking out the Dharma and studying the teachings of the Buddha to really support me in navigating this practice of cultivating kind awareness, of being with my experience as it is. Um, so much of the years, and I'm going to speak a lot from my own experience here at first, and then we'll do some meditation. Um, Much of my years of meditation practice has been navigating this balance between striving uh, too hard and being too passive, like kind of letting go too much to the fact that the point that I kind of lose my way and I lose that thread of intention. And I tend towards striving, so that's where a lot of my focus has been. And you may, in your own practice, tend toward the other way. So I'm going to speak here from my own experience, and we'll explore it together. Probably one of the first teachings that grabbed my attention around how to hold my practice with more ease was a teaching from Sharon Salzberg. And I read it in her book, Real Happiness, and I've read that book so many times. And she spoke about meeting your mindfulness meditation practice with a relaxed persistence. And it's, not holding on too tightly to the method or the outcome of your practice, and but really sticking with your intention, right? Like sticking with the practice and coming back again and again, bringing an attitude of ease to this consistent return to our experience over and over again. And I still remember it was an insight that I had. I was like sitting on my couch in our basement because I had young children. It was like the only place that was quiet enough for me to do my practice where people wouldn't bother me. Um, and I was just like sitting on the couch in the dark, and I had like this agenda of what I was going to accomplish in my meditation time. And it just hit me that I was really holding it too tightly and too harsh. So I began to explore this sense of striving that I was noticing in my practice. And I think that's the real call of this practice, is to show up to and investigate with curiosity and interest whatever is there. And for me, it was a lot of striving. And so I recognized that there were some different components at play. And one that was really clear was the energy level that was present in my mind and my body, and my heart for that matter as well. And so I started to really look and investigate the body, and I noticed there was a lot of tension. I was clenching my teeth. I was literally leaning forward while I was practicing. Like I was trying to get somewhere. I was just trying to go in that direction. So I started to get curious about what was showing up in my body, how I was holding my body, um, and noticing restlessness in my legs, just that tension that was there, and really practicing noticing that with kindness, without judgment, with just an allowing, like, this is how it is right now. This is what's showing up in my energy level when I'm in that striving mode. And then also checking in with the judgmental thoughts about my practice, kind of what's going on, the energy level of my mind, the judgment about how I should be, shouldn't be, any frantic thought loops that are going on. Um, I'm really getting curious about that. And then the other component, so like really looking at the energy in the mind and the body and the heart, and then investigating my attitude toward that. So the the attitude towards the energy or the effort that I was bringing to practice. Um, when we're feeling that kind of restless energy, we can have a lot of judgments about it and be very, I was irritated, wishing it was different, maybe even being afraid, like having some fear arise that I wasn't going to accomplish what I needed to accomplish to feel okay. Um, or that I was going to miss something, the sense of urgency that was there. And so, really getting curious about the attitude that was present, like not just what the energy level was like in the body, but like how I was meeting that too, like what attitude I was bringing to that. And the attitude can be very subtle. Um, and it's just like this layer on top of what's actually happening. So getting curious about that. And, the striving, it's all in an effort to be okay. Um, it arises from a wish or a desire um, for care for ourselves. Really, a lot of times that desire is misguided in that we see that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed. But it really arises out of a sense of care for ourselves. So to not be so hard on that when it's showing up. But this idea that we can whip ourselves into shape with our meditation practice um, often gets in the way of really what we're the intention that we're holding around care and kindness for our experience just as it is. And it then also gets in the way of us seeing clearly how we're meeting the moment, that we're caught in striving or in this effort that is kind of getting in the way or clouding our capacity to see clearly so that we can't see what the next skillful right step is for us. And so, one thing I wanted to explore today with you in practice is really beginning to look at our energy in the body. Um, it's kind of the first part of really understanding effort and the effort that we're bringing to our meditation practice, and also the effort that we're bringing to anything that we're doing out in the world. So, um, one way to begin to do this is to work with the hindrances. And as many of you know, the five hindrances are part of the fourth foundation of mindfulness. And they're considered a list of obstacles that can sometimes show up in our meditation practice. And I really like to see them more as opportunities rather than obstacles, like opportunities for us to get curious about our experience in this moment as we're sitting down to explore our present moment experience. And so to just review what the five are, sensual desire, aversion, sloth and torpor, which I love saying, or sleepiness, and restlessness and doubt. And so I just want to focus on the two hindrances that are really related to our energy level in the body. So, sloth and torpor and restlessness, and beginning to sort of explore that a little bit. So, these are two hindrances that really we can see playing out in energy in the body and the mind. And sloth and torpor can be seen as like a deficit of energy, and it can show up as laziness, dullness or fogginess in the mind or in the body, a lack of vitality, or just sleepiness. And sometimes we are just sleepy. Actually, a lot of times we're sleepy. And I will acknowledge that this time of day can be a sleepy time of day, um, especially for me because I'm 2 hours. Uh, it's 2 p.m. in the afternoon, so it's a sleepy time, can be. So sometimes we're just sleepy. But also sometimes it can be a way to avoid something difficult that's showing up in our mind or an experience in the body that is hard to turn toward, hard to pay attention to. And the mind can become really cloudy, really hard to see clearly kind of what's arising, what's next. And it can be really challenging to pay attention to our experience when we have this kind of low energy. And the other end of the spectrum is restlessness. And this can be maybe too much energy. And in the body, this shows up as actual restless energy, vibrations, being jumpy or on edge, feeling different kinds of tension or tightness, or like I was noting, like leaning forward when you're practicing. I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but I tend to have what's next mind quite often, where I'm always thinking about what's next. Um, Planning is always helpful, but when you're sitting down to meditate, you don't always need to know exactly what the next thing you're going to do. And so that's always an indication to me when I sit down to meditate in the morning, if I'm already thinking about what I'm going to have for breakfast, like I need to know what the next thing I'm going to do. It's like, oh, what's next, mind? And that's like kind of this striving, leaning forward kind of energy. So in the mind, you can see agitation and worry, anxiety, nervousness showing up, and those endless stories that kind of go on repeat in the head, just spinning again and again. Another way that restlessness as a hindrance can show up in your meditation practice is having trouble settling on an object to pay attention to. Like, okay, this morning I'm going to do mindfulness of the body. I'm just going to pay attention to my body. Oh, no, I think I'm going to do thoughts. I'm going to do thoughts. Oh, sounds. It's really noisy outside. I think I'm going to do sounds. Um, that's a clue to me that I'm experiencing a lot of restless energy. So working with these hindrances in meditation can be really helpful because it gets us more familiar with what the different levels of energy in the body feel like to us because they all show up differently for each person. So just begin by observing, like, how does your body feel? Like checking in with the energy level at the beginning, the middle, the end of your practice, just looking at the different components. And the same thing with the mind. Like, how does your mind feel? Like, what is the energy level in the mind? Noticing the thoughts, the emotions, the different sensations. And sometimes just the interest in getting curious about what's present um, can kind of bring some ease either to the sleepiness or the restlessness. Um, it can just help it let go just a little bit. Um, and also, when we can get curious about what kind of energy is showing up in the body, we can even get real practical and just try to balance it. So, if we're really sleepy, opening our eyes when we're practicing, if we're very restless, maybe doing a walking practice as a way to support the movement that wants to happen in the body. Um, or even something as simple as just doing some counting of the breath briefly to kind of bring some concentration to ease a restless mind. And it's really easy to fall into judgment when we notice these hindrances of energy showing up in the body. And so practicing observing this without adding a layer of judgment and identification on top of it. It's not your restlessness, it's restlessness arising in your experience. Same with sleepiness. These are states. They will change. They're impermanent. They will come and go. They're not solid states. And we can, just by investigating in them and being curious about them, we can notice that. And so taking some of these um, practices into our meditation and just begin to notice that. So I thought we could do some practice around investigating the body. And so I'll do some light guidance at the beginning investigating energy in the body. And then there'll be a lot of space for practice for you to experiment with that on your own. So I'll just invite you to come into a posture for meditation that feels comfortable for you today so that you can sit in a way that allows you to have a relaxed persistence in how you're meeting this moment. So holding the body with ease, yet alertness, whether that's sitting or lying down. You're welcome to leave your eyes open if you're noticing a lot of sleepiness, or close them in a way to remove some of the external stimuli around you. Whatever feels best for you today, really trusting in the intuition of your own practice. And then, as this is a practice that we're experiencing in the middle of the day, our attention has probably been called in a lot of different directions already. So just inviting all the pieces of your attention to just sort of pour back into your body. All the attention that we have scattered in different directions, skillful or unskillful, just letting it come back into the body. And as your attention sort of sifts down through the body, just bringing awareness to the body sitting, or lying down, or standing. And directing your attention to the points of the body that are in connection with the ground and the support you're sitting on. Noticing your feet touching the floor, your bottom and your thighs resting on your chair or your cushion. Allowing your hands to rest with ease. whatever position feels most comfortable. Noticing the shoulders and allowing gravity to just pull your shoulders heavy in their sockets. And checking in with your neck and your jaw, allowing space between your upper and lower teeth, and feeling your eyes resting in their sockets. So just noticing your whole body sitting, breathing, resting your attention in all the sensations present in the body. There's nowhere else to be right now, nothing else to do. Allowing your attention to just rest in the body sitting. And while we're with the body, inviting a sense of gratitude to the body for supporting us today, for supporting us in this practice, for supporting us when we're not paying attention to it. In whatever way the body is showing up today. And as we're resting our attention in the body, we also may notice the breath moving in and out of the body. And perhaps this is an anchor of attention for you. Shifting your attention from the body as a whole, if you want, to the breath. Noticing the breath moving in and out on each inhale and exhale. Noticing the different parts of the body where you feel the breath. The nostrils, the chest, the belly, the back. Resting your attention on just this home base, this anchor of breath, and including the body if you like. And as you're settling into the practice, resting your awareness on the breath and the body, you can also begin to observe the level of energy present. Let's begin with the body. Is it calm, sleepy, restless? Intending to bring a kind and not judgmental awareness and attitude to these observations. Are there areas of discomfort grabbing your attention and noticing the energy in those areas? See if there are areas in the body that feel comfortable and get curious about what you notice there too. And what's your energy level in the mind today? Foggy, agitated, calm, restless. Perhaps there's a story looping on repeat, or maybe you're tending towards daydreaming and kind of zoning out. Again, just getting curious. There's there's no specific state to experience while meditating. Of course, some states are more pleasant than others, but our practice is to be curious and interested so we can skillfully engage with what's here. And as we practice together, resting your attention on your anchor, bring this inquiry into your practice. What is my energy level right now? How am I relating to this state that is present right now? And we'll practice together in silence, and I will call us out of practice at the end. as we prepare to bring this practice to a close, I'd like to invite you to check in one more time with the energy level in the mind, in the heart, in the body, noticing how our state of energy is constantly changing and flowing. It's never static, even when the quality leans toward restlessness or leans towards sleepiness. And allowing your energy to be just as it is today. Right now, it's like this. And to bring the practice to a close, I'll invite you to take a full deep breath. Slowly let it exhale and open your eyes if they're closed. Thank you for your practice. Before I open up for some questions or comments, I just wanted to share one of why this is alive for me right now. This checking in with my energy. There's a lot in our communities, in our world that needs our attention and needs skillful effort. And it's challenging to try to figure out what is needed right now. What is the level of effort that is most skillful right now for me to engage um, in a way that reduces harm? And so for me in my practice, I've been really tuning into my level of energy to help give me some wisdom and some guidance into kind of where I am so that I can then kind of choose skillfully what to do next when I'm off my cushion. Um, so I just wanted to offer that as a way to just kind of really tie our meditation practice in with how we move through the world and how we engage um, in our families and communities and with all beings. So thank you. Yeah, so if anybody has a comment or a question or anything that they noticed in the practice that they would like to share, you can either share in the chat or um, unmute yourself, raise your hand, whatever feels comfortable to you. It doesn't need to be a question. It could just be sharing a little bit about your experience in practice. Sometimes sharing about your practice can be a real support in a community like this. Yeah, so Madeline noted the phrasing of what's next mind. Yeah, that was sort of an insight to me to begin to realize that habit of mind that I have to always be thinking about what's next. Um, and there are points in my practice where I really gave myself a hard time for that, because it means I wasn't present, right? I was like on to the next thing. I was thinking about the next thing um and really shifting my relationship to that, my attitude towards what's next mind, be like, oh, there's what's next mind. Like as just that's what's showing up in my practice as something to notice and pay attention to instead of it being a problem. Would I like to be more present, sure. And sometimes I'm in what's next mind. And so, and then how can I meet that with more kindness and more ease, like shifting my attitude toward that. Brenda, yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oops. I unvideoed myself also. And now my dog's gonna bark. Um, I can really relate to that. I think that for me, that was something that I really focused on very early in my practice for
Mhm.
many years, probably like 7 years. But I had a mental health break and I suffer from complex PTSD. And that hitting rock bottom stopped a lot of that what's next in a lot of ways. And it was just
Mm.
sort of because I couldn't do what was next. And then it became okay that I couldn't do what was next. And I remember walking with my girlfriend with that what next thing. So what are you doing next? In those earlier years. And it was just chronic and it was in meditation as well. And but when I lost all ability to move around the world in a normal way, whatever that may be, I realized that, really I didn't have a choice. So it became okay.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a beautiful flowering of your practice there too. Like that, all that practice with noticing it really was there for you when, you know, you needed it to be with um, the challenges that your mental health was facing for you at that time. A really beautiful flowering of your practice, and to recognize that a phrase that's been really helpful to me also in meditation and in life is, right now it's like this, you know, and that's not my habit of mind, like, and you don't recognize that your habit is so future oriented until you sit and
Yeah,
look.
I love that phrase right
Hmm.
now. Yes. It's been very powerful
Yeah,
yes, it's beautiful. I love that phrase.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Brenda.
for your practice.
Thank you. I saw there was something in the chat. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Marilyn shared noticing the changes of energy within the practice. Um, yeah, I think that that's something really interesting because to begin to notice that you can see like how your energy is changing all the time. Um, because so often we identify with, like, I'm really restless, like I am, and we identify with that without looking at the nuances and getting curious about noticing that. Um, so that just, at any time you can drop that inquiry into your practice when you're sitting, like, what's my energy level right now? What am I noticing? And to be able to see the ebbs and flows even within a 20-minute, practice period. Um, and just to recognize like the impermanence of that too, like how it is changing. So when we're in a state of energy that's difficult, uncomfortable, painful, um, or really unworkable, or it feels like it's unworkable, that too will pass. It will change in some way, even if it's just a little bit. Yeah. J- Did Julie, I think you unmuted, and then Jennifer. Yeah.
So I could really relate to what you were saying about kind of physically feeling yourself going forward. I feel that way too. I'm always like on go, and my husband says I'm a worrier, that I worry about everything, but I have not felt like that that way. I feel like I'm more of a problem solver and thinking ahead and that kind of thing. But one thing my practice has really helped me with is, I mean, I don't think you can change your personality, but I do feel like I pause before I go into that next thought. And so for me, that's a huge accomplishment just to kind of stop and think a little bit before that next step. So thank you. I enjoyed this.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. That's a really beautiful observation. You know, it's not necessary, our practice is not about changing who we are. You know, like we are who we are, and we have these patterns of how we relate to the world that we've been using for a long time. And so to think that we're just going to meditate and whip that into shape is, I mean, it's really unrealistic. And we can meet our experience with more kindness and more ease. You know, like I see that what's next mind a lot, you know, like, and now I'm able to relate to it with more kindness and humor. Like sometimes it just makes me laugh, you know, uh, and that just creates space around it and opens it up. And so we just take ourselves less seriously. I think one of the meditation instructions that has always stuck with me is one that Pema Chodron offers. Someone was like, "What is the most helpful meditation instruction that you've ever had?" or something like that. I'm not quoting it perfectly, but she said, "Lighten up." And I was like, "Yeah, you know." And so, but it requires us first having the courage to look at those patterns, which can be challenging and painful. Um, And then we have the opportunity to look at the attitude that we're bringing to them. Yeah. Thanks, Julie. Jennifer, you had a comment?
I had a question.
Yes.
Do you have any kind of a recommendation about how much guided meditation I should do, and how much, or anybody should do, and how much just sitting for 10, 20, 30 minutes or whatever? Or what's your experience? Or yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I'll preface it by saying I don't think that there's an absolute perfect dose of either. If you know, there's not like the right fixed dose. You know, I think when we're beginning our practice, it can be really helpful to use guided practices just to give us some structure and orientation when we're learning something new. Um, and then it can be helpful to experiment with just setting a timer and seeing what you notice. I would, I will speak from my own experience with my own practice. What helps me kind of decide where I need to shift is by checking in with my energy and my experience. Like sometimes if I'm feeling really, really restless and having a really restless mind, putting on a guided practice can be really helpful to help me work with the restlessness that I'm noticing in my mind. Like my mind just needs a job, and the job is going to be listening to some guidance. Um, and that can be very, very skillful. Um, and then also to be noticing, like, if there's some hesitation or some judgment about what if I don't have guidance? Am I going to be able to, you know, accomplish something in my meditation or have a good sit, you know? And noticing those kinds of layers and judgments that you might be putting on top of your own experience. Uh, that might be creating a narrative that's maybe getting in the way of you trying to just sit and see what you notice. So I don't have like a very specific, you know, answer for you on
No,
that.
that's okay. I just was curious, like, yeah,
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
your experience or
I
what
use
you.
both. I do
Hmm,
both. And I
okay.
just really, really sort of check in with my own kind of where I am and what's going to be
Mhm,
useful for me on
okay.
that day. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank
For
you.
that question. You're welcome. Yeah, Marilyn mentioned in the chat that using a mantra when they're feeling restless is really helpful. Yeah, that can be super helpful too, as just a way to, you know, concentration is an antidote to restlessness in the mind. And we all have different ways that we can cultivate concentration. So a mantra, staring at a candle, you know, we have different tools that work for each of us. So yeah, that's very helpful. So Yeah, I just really appreciate all of your kind attention today. Uh, it's a real joy for me to be here.